that's going to bring us to the white cards, starting with Bravekin Duo. There's a single white mana for interesting here, a rabbit mouse. So 1 mana, 1/1, rabbit mouse. It's got the ability 1, tap it, target creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn, activate only as a sorcery.
So notably, if you're not watching this and just listening to it, it's not some weird like Frankenstein thing where they've stapled a rabbit mouse together. There is both a rabbit and a mouse in the art, hence the name Duo. Each color pair has 2 sets of duos at commons, and they both have a creature pair that's 2 of the 4 colors. So there is some overlap, but not across all wedges or shards, right? Because like this supports red, white, and red, or sorry, white, yeah, red, white, and white, green. So Naya colors, but there's not anything that's green, white, and green, black. So little interesting that these, I don't know how much intentionality they included in making sure the 2 pairs have some overlapping synergies. But in theory, this goes in your rabbit deck and your mouse deck.
Yeah, and one of the things, I was just looking at all of the 10 cards in this like double cycle, and a few things I thought about. One, I think this is an intentional design, I don't know, something they've learned over the years, where when you have a typal set like this, where there's just like all these segmented creature types, you need some glue cards, or else people do get in like, well, I'm putting the blinders on, I'm just drafting these cards. These allow you to be flexible, reasonably early picks, not first to fourth or anything, but you're happy to take these cards in the middle of the pack, which I guess leads me to my next point, is I think all of these intentionally are all pretty good cards. I think that majority, maybe like there's an exception or two, but these are like C to C plus, maybe even gets to B minus in 1 or 2 of them level cards. So I think you can.
Okay. I disagree.
Oh,
but that's
interesting. Okay.
I think that this one, so this one's worth talking about. I think this one is the second worst in my opinion. So do you just like this card in any like green white deck?
No. This one is one of the lesser good ones. I would say. And we'll see when we get to them. But my read on it was they wanted you to take have a card you look at in the draft and you're like, that's flexible, and I'm not giving up much power by taking a flexible card, because that's often the trade off.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have them all in my head right now, but I can think of 2 that I just don't automatically start, and this is definitely one of them.
Okay.
Like this screams like a red white card to me.
Oh, totally.
Like triggers. Yeah.
Yeah, this is more a red white card than a white anything else card, because this is like repeatable Valiant, which is what the card's doing. But I also think it's like a fine playable.
So it's also going to benefit from your red white things that care about having that creature type.
Yeah. Okay, let's give it a grade then. I would give Bravekin Duo a sort of a synergy card, because I think, like you said, or like we said, it's a red white card, and if that's the deck you're drafting, I think this is a C. Otherwise, I think it's like a D.
Yeah, I don't even think it's that good in red white. I'm just going to give this a D plus.
Okay. Yeah, totally fair. I think that, we'll see when we get to the rest of them if I'm overshooting on how good these cards are, because maybe I even overshot on just like explaining them, because I don't think they're like great cards or anything, but I think they're safe cards to take early, and you're not going to be too sad about them in any deck. Maybe this is one of the exceptions. Next up, Crumb and Get It. Good name. Crumb as in CRUMB. This is a single white mana for an instant. Gift of food. Target creature you control gets +2/+2 until end of turn. If the gift was promised, that creature also gains indestructible till end of turn.
So here, I talked about each color having a combat trick at 1 mana at common. This is the white one. This one is fine.
I would say a little bit better than fine. Like, protection spell, like +2/+2 is kind of the going rate, with, you always want a little bit of a bonus, but when you, like, gifting your opponent a food won't matter that much when you're blowing out a removal spell, or when you're just putting your opponent under a ton of pressure and they don't have time to crack that food. So I
agree that you will gift a food some portion of the time with this.
Right.
+2/+2 is good, but we've even seen sets where like giant growth wasn't that exciting.
No, but I think the optionality of this being a protection spell is a big deal.
It protects from most things.
Sure, sure.
There's a good amount of exile. There's
Hmm.
bounce. There's times that this isn't going to save your creature like you want it to.
Yeah, no, that is totally fair. But it saves them in like an evenly matched combat. Like your 2/2 crashes into a 4/4. Like that's pretty big.
So are you going to play this again? It's good in red white. It trigger targets your stuff. Are you
Hmm.
going to play this in non red white decks and like be happy about it?
I think so. Yeah, I'm trying to think of like in blue white, sure. In green white, sure. Black white might be the exception. But even there, I could see it. Yeah, I think I'm generally going to be happy with this card. Like, I was just going to give this a C.
Okay,
Yeah.
I had written down C minus, so
Okay,
we're
cool.
not that far.
Yeah.
But yeah.
All right, what's next? Ooh, this is a good one.
Carrot cake, 1 and a white for an artifact food. When it enters and when you sacrifice it, create a 1/1 white rabbit creature token and scry 1. And it has the food text, so you can pay 2, sack it to gain 3 life.
Yeah, that sounds pretty nice. So, this is something that chat pointed out as works very well with that ball of raccoon vehicle, whatever it is, the 6/6 that you have to tap two tokens. Carrot cake gives
Yes.
you 2 tokens.
Yeah, not a very aggressive card.
No, it's not. Yeah.
And a lot of the white decks do seem to be like, especially red white wants to be quite aggressive, I think. So, not going to go in all of your white decks, but I think it goes in every white deck except red white. So, probably still the type of card you're happy to take pretty early.
Yeah, because even in like your green white decks where you're attacking, it's an aggressive deck. Go wide decks generally, the play pattern in go wide decks isn't, oh, I need to get in with my 2, I need to get in with my 3. It's, I'm going to spend the early game building up a big board and then leverage that big board somehow, like a mass pump spell. So I think Kurt's totally fine there. That Scry one is really nice. Just
Yes.
that's really going to smooth things out. I think this card's really good. I would give,
There's also times.
yeah,
Sorry, go
no,
ahead.
no, no. I was going to say I would give Carrot Cake a B minus, but what were you going to say?
I was going to say the nice thing, well, is that it's not green black, but if you can sacrifice this to forage,
Hmm.
you're also getting 2/1/1 rabbits and the scry too. So then it's really nice too.
Yeah. You want to join me
B
on the
minus.
B?
I'm not as high as that.
No?
I'll give
Okay.
it B plus.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think this just has enough going on with it. Like the life gain's nice, the double scry 2, making multiple bodies, the token, 2 tokens. Like we're gonna see a few more cards that care about that. Yeah,
It's
Tinkers.
also kind of weird for me. Sorry, the last art has like if you go back to Crumb and Get It, it has this like beautiful, delicious looking breadstick in it that's like clearly made by an excellent baker. And then this carrot cake is like a
Almost
real pile of food.
looks like it's like, yeah, there's some rotten ingredients in there. I guess the bats are maybe better bakers than the rabbits, apparently.
I guess so. But yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say Tinker's Tote is the comparison some people are making, which I think is kind of a solid comparison. All right, I'll stick with my B
Yeah,
minus, but we shall see.
sure.
Life Creed Duo. So we've got another duo here. 1 and a white for a 1/2 bat bird. It's got flying, and whenever another creature enters, that you control, you gain 1 life. I've not been reading. I've been glossing over the you control, but whenever another creature you control enters, you gain 1 life.
Yeah, if it was any creature
Oh,
entering, it would really be
busted.
cooking.
Yeah.
So this, I think this is an example of, so it's gluey, but this is still only going in white, blue, and white, black for me.
Yes, I agree with that totally. Which I think is like they did a good job of saying, well, here are the 2 creature types on the card. Here's where they go.
Yeah, and it's going to be at its best in white, black,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because like that way to trigger your life gain payoffs is going to be more relevant than the fact that it's a flying creature for birds, I think.
Yeah, this is one of the cards I've been thinking about a decent amount in the last few days as the whole set has been previewed. And going back and forth a little bit on it, this effect tends to be pretty good when we've seen it at like 1 or 2 mana. Like whenever a creature enters, you gain a life. But it's also on a body I don't care that much about. It's not even like you can pump it with your Flying Things Matter cards because it has flying, so you can't put a counter on it from your golden common or whatever. I'm
Well, the
leaning
golden common triggers putting a counter on a non-flyer whenever you have a flyer enter,
right,
right?
right. I'm just saying
So it will generate another counter.
that is true. Yeah, I was just saying like turning this into a relevant body, but you're right. Like this, you might not care about that as much when you have your blocker is a little bit better, for example. But But yeah, no, I agree. It's mostly a bat card. So in a bat deck that cares about life gain, like I think this is a pretty good playable. Like, I think it's a 2-drop you're happy to play. I'd give it a C plus, and then
Yeah.
probably
Do you want to grade these? Like, obviously, if someone puts these in a spreadsheet, it
yeah.
compares them to 17 lands at the end of the format. We're going to be a little high on things, but I think we'll grade these assuming they're going in the right
In the
deck.
right deck. Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. So C
Okay,
plus.
so C, I'm with you on C plus for C plus in white black and slightly worse in blue white, and probably you don't want it in the other white
Yep,
decks.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Nettleguard is up next. 1 and a white for a mouse soldier. It's a 3/1. It's got a valiant ability. When you target it with a spell or ability for the first time each turn, it gets +0/+2 until end of turn, so it turns into a 3/3. And it's got the ability 1 and sack it, destroy target artifact or enchantment.
Yeah, I think this thing's good enough to get played in most white decks.
Yeah. This is the Cathar Commando from Midnight Hunt, and that card ended up being pretty good. And I think there's actually even a few more artifacts and enchantments running around in this set compared to that one. So
And it can randomly be a 3/3, right? Like it's
yeah, no, this card's good.
Yep.
I would give Nettleguard a C plus.
Yeah, I'm with you
Yep,
there.
good 2-drop. Sonar Strike. This one's interesting. 1 and a white for an instant. It deals 4 damage to target attacking, blocking, or tapped creature. So just covering all the bases there. You gain 3 life if you control a bat.
Yeah, I like that you can do this. Usually these are just attacking or blocking. The addition of tapped is pretty nice because you can do it on your turn without needing to worry about them untapping and having a combat trick up.
Yeah, and one of the things about these cards that we often say are bad in aggro because you don't want your opponent to be able to block first. You want to be able to be pushing damage, and your opponent's not going to be attacking you much. But the exception to that is if you're a flying aggro deck where your opponents are racing you on the ground, you're flying over. These become good, and it just so happens that 2 of the decks in this format, black, white, and blue, white, are flying decks. So
Yeah, and the card we saw 2 cards ago, the duo. If you're playing blue white and you happen to have a couple of bats, just because they're duos, then you might get the 3 life off of this as well.
Yeah, to make a comparison, Sturgrovitz brings this up in chat. It's not quite obviously. There's this kind of lofty comparison, but Lightning Helix, like when you do kill a creature, you're dealing 4 and gaining 3. Like that is good.
When you do kill a creature and when you do have a bat.
Yes, sorry, I should say that. Yeah, when you do the thing.
Multiple hoops to jump through, but yeah, it's worth mentioning the ceiling on this thing is very high.
Yeah, sort of like the duos. I think we're gonna grade this as though it goes in the appropriate place.
Yeah, give it the black white grade.
Yeah, and I think in black white, it could be even like a B- card, but I'm gonna give it the C plus.
I was gonna say exactly those words you just said.
Great. Okay, good. We're on the same page here. What's next?
Warren Elder, 1 and a white for a 2/2 rabbit, and it has 3 and a white to give creatures you control +1/+1 until end of turn. No sorcery speed, no once per turn, just anytime you like.
Yeah, these cards in the past have overperformed generally. And they have been. Some of them have had restrictions, like the ones you mentioned. This one doesn't, and it's just a 2-minute 2/2, mind you. There's no extra anything floating around, but I think this card's gonna be pretty good if you're going wide.
Yeah, and this goes in every white deck.
Yes, exactly. It's not specifically because it's good with flyers too. Just like giving yourself that 1 fewer turns of combat, stealing the last 3 points with your flyers is pretty good. So yeah, I think I'm gonna give Warden Elder a C plus.
I am gonna go up to the B-.
Wow.
For this.
Okay. Yeah.
I think this card's excellent.
I can see it too. Banishing Light, just straight up common Banishing Light. This is 2 and a white for an enchantment. When it enters, exile target non-land permanent and opponent controls until Banishing Light leaves.
Another B-.
Yeah,
Super efficient, happy to play. Good card.
Yeah, White's got some good stuff going on. And another really good one here, Intrepid Rabbit. This is 2 and a white for a 3/2 Rabbit Soldier. And this is our first instance of the Offspring mechanic. So it's got Offspring for 1. You may pay an additional 1 as you cast this spell. If you do, when this creature enters, create a 1/1 token copy of it. And the rabbit itself says, when this creature enters, target creature you control gets +1/+1 until end of turn. So kind of just think of these as split cards, where you've got a 3-mana 3/2, or you can kick it, or kind of a kicker card if you want to think about it that way. Kick it for an additional cost, and you get a token that's a copy of it. And this one's a really, really good one.
Right, and notably, the token is going to give you a second trigger, like
Yes.
in case people didn't clock that. So you'll be able to give two creatures +1/+1, or a single creature +2/+2
Mm-hmm.
if you do pay the 4 mana for this.
It's 2 Valiant
This
triggers
card's
too, if you care about that.
amazing. Yeah, this card's so good.
Really good. Yeah, this is great. I want to give a B to Intrepid
Yeah,
Rabbit.
I had already written down B for
Great.
myself.
Yeah, white. Yeah, the comments don't stop coming here for white. Thistledown Players is next up. 3 mana, 2 and a white for a 3/3 Mouse Bard. When it attacks, untap target non-land permanent. So either give something vigilance effectively or trigger your Valiant. Obviously, you do both in the process. Meh, fine.
Yeah, goes in just one deck. Like
Yep.
this is another. There's a lot of secret gold cards in this set, and so I think figuring out what lane you're in to make sure if you're the red white deck, you don't want to be taking these early, but you're happy to get these 9th, 10th, 11th pick,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a lot of those in this set. So this one probably C minus.
Yeah, I was gonna
in the
give it
red
a
white
C
deck.
minus. I actually really like what you just said there because I think that Wizards has kind of made an effort, maybe in the past 5-ish years, but even more and more as sets go on, to make sure that everybody at the table kind of drafts a functional deck. They're never gonna train wreck of like, oh man, like my cards just like literally cannot play well together. You could put this in your rabbit deck or your bird deck or whatever, it would be fine. But I think identifying the secret gold cards is going to be a big piece of the puzzle. And like somebody in chat saying, it might not be that secret because a lot of times the type line, the creature type, is actually going to point you in the right direction.
Yeah.
All right, what's up next?
Yeah, I think he will
Oh,
be
sorry.
figuring out what are the cards that only go in 1 or 2 decks, and what are the cards that go in 3 or 4.
Yep, totally agree.
Yep.
Next up.
Next, we have Rabbit Response. 2 white for an instant. Creatures you control get +2/+1 until end of turn. If you control a rabbit, scry 2.
Remember when we get on the job and that just drew a card without anything? Yeah, I mean, I'm sure a lot of people are going to be happy that it's not on the
You're
job.
supposed to draw a card.
Yeah, I'm not trying to talk it down too much. Just saying how, mostly pointing out how absurd on the job was. Yeah.
I don't think this is worse though. Like this is
No, it's not that much worse.
notably the things that make tokens. I think you could go a little wider in OTJ between
Yep.
dog walker, flipping for cheap, and the gadget whatever technician. There's a lot of things that make tokens. Inside source. This one we've only seen 2 things so far that make multiple bodies. Right, there was the offspring and there was the green white hybrid card.
Yep.
So I think it'll be a little bit slower to go wide in this set, but if you're in the go wide deck, this is another example of a card you'll be happy to play.
Yeah, I totally agree. Do you want to give this like a B minus for the go wide deck?
I'm just gonna go C plus
Okay.
for green white. Yeah.
Yeah. And chat saying, is scry relevant if the opponent's dead? No, true, but the reason that's on there is so that you're okay casting it just as a combat trick in the mid game. Win a combat or 2, scry, like that gives you some push to the, actually killing them. It's just so that you're not just like, well, I can't cast this unless I'm playing to win. It gives you some flexibility essentially.
Yeah, but I mean, on the job was a great example. Like,
Yeah.
was the clue relevant? Well, a lot of times no, but sometimes it was.
Right, exactly. Wax Wayne Witness. This is 3 and a white for a Bat Cleric, 2/4 Vigilant Flyer. Whenever you gain or lose life during your turn, Wax Wayne Witness gets +1/+0 until end of turn.
Yeah, and another not once per turn thing. So if you're having multiple triggers, this can potentially attack or block as a 4 power creature.
True.
So
Yeah, this one's interesting. They're definitely tempting me with how good can my no ETB expensive card be. And this is like not terribly statted. 4 toughness is really nice. The vigilance is really nice. Like you mentioned, the multiple instances, maybe being a 4/4 vigilant some turns is really nice. I still don't want to go too high, but
yeah, it's the stats aren't nice enough to make me want it outside of bats.
yeah, it's a bat specific card. So in your bat deck, it's fine. It's probably like a C minus there, but not a card we really care about too much else other places.
Yeah, I was gonna give it a C in bats.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yep, I'll join you.
Okay.
Pileated Provisioner. This is 5 mana, 4 and a white for a 3/4 flyer. It's a bird. When it enters, you put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control without flying.
Yeah, I like this thing.
Me too.
I like it enough to look beyond the creature type.
Yeah, especially because a lot of the bird cards are like this. Like, you don't actually need other birds for them to be good, which is kind of not true for some of the other creature types. Like, this one is totally fine in any other kind of deck. We've seen this card a lot, actually, recently. There was Sterling Supplier. There was the one from Brothers War, and they've always been just pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, good 5. C
Like
plus?
a C?
Yeah, sure.
C
Let's get
plus
him a C.
here?
You're right. I think C is more appropriate.
Okay.
What's next? We're at uncommons now. So we're back to the cheap cards. Going to 1 mana cards, white uncommons. What's our first one?
Flowerfoot Swordmaster. So this is white for a 1/2 mouse. It has Offspring for 2 mana. So if you want to get both creatures, you have to pay 2 and a white. And it has Valiant. Whenever this creature becomes the target of a spell or ability you control for the first time each turn, mice you control get +1/+0 until end of turn.
Ooh. Yeah, Valiant with an Offspring card is kind of cool, because Valiant's once per turn, but if you have multiple things at target, you can get your effect twice per turn. Pretty good one,
Right.
too.
And the fact you get them twice, both of them get pumped, right?
Yeah.
Because they're both mice.
This
So
one's really
if
strong. Wow.
yeah, if you trigger both of them, even without whatever the trigger card is doing, you're attacking with a 3/2 and a 3/1.
Yeah, one of the questions that I've got in the early days of the format is, what do you think the split is of offspringing versus not offspringing? And I think the answer is it depends on the card, depends on your hand. It depends, just straight up, it depends. But I think with this one, it's going to be a pretty even split of casting
Yeah.
it on 1 and casting it on 3.
Yeah, don't make the mistake of holding this for value if you've got
Yes.
a 3-drop lined up.
Totally. Yeah, what do you want to give the Swordmaster here?
I am worried that my B- I want to write may even be too low.
Yeah, I was just going to give it a B. I think it's pretty good.
Okay, you convinced me. I didn't take a lot of arm squeezing for that.
We got him, chat.
Yeah.
All right, next up, Seasoned Warren Guard. Pretty nice one here, too. Single white mana for a 1/2 rabbit. When it attacks while you control a token, it gets +2/+0 until end of turn. So attacks is a 3/2. Oof.
Yeah, so not a ton of aggressive cards that give you tokens on turn 2.
It's true.
Right? Like we saw the carrot cake, but that's like, kind of splitting your game plan. And so by the time you're attacking with this as a 3/2, I don't know if it's as good. I mean, I guess you can play your common that gives it extra power as well and gets in with this. But I think the ability, like, it kind of reads like the Goblin Blastmaster or whatever from Bro.
Yes, yep.
Where the threat of it was really scary. But I'm not as sold on this.
So yeah, I think it's probably a little bit worse than that turn. Like than that card. Menace was big on the Blast Runner. But I agree, you're not going to be attacking for 3 on turn 2 or even on turn 3 a lot of the time. But just the investment of just 1 mana, and then on turn 4 you're attacking for 3 power. Like that's really good.
Yeah, you're right. That's still good.
Yeah. I'm going to give Seasoned Warden Guard a C+, assuming that might even be too low. I'll give it a B-, assuming you've got enough tokens and enough being somewhere in like the 7 to 8 range.
Okay, I'll go C+.
Okay.
I think that's reasonable. Yeah.
What's next? Easy one. Simple one.
Bright Blade Stoat. 1 and a white for a 2/2 with no relevant creature types. It is a Weasel Soldier. It has First Strike and it has Lifelink.
Boom. Great. Just simple, but great. Yeah. Whereas Enhancement Spell, Combat Tricks, B-?
Maybe even better.
Maybe even
like
B.
super efficient. I think I'm gonna give this a thing of B.
No, you're totally right. Because like if your opponent doesn't have a removal spell, you're going to be gaining 4-6 life off this thing a lot of the time. And they can't attack into you the turn they cast it, or you cast it, unless they have a trick or removal spell. Yeah, no, totally agree.
This thing is extreme. Like, it's good on offense, but it's extremely good on defense.
Yes.
Like, if you want to not die, just having, because if they decide, okay, I have a thing that's big enough to attack, so I'll attack through it, well, then you can just crack back and gain 2.
Yeah. Also, this is like one of the first times we've seen, or one of the only times we've seen First Strike straight up recently.
Right. Usually it's on attacking only. Like that. Yeah.
Wow.
This is gonna, and First Strike on defense is way more important than on attacks.
No, card's very good. Also, very appreciative to Watsy on the I think they've taken made an effort to make cards a bit more simple. We're actually going to see quite a few more cards at Uncommon like this, where just like pretty good keywords. Both as I think the player base appreciates it, and I think us as set reviewers, we appreciate it a little bit, just not having to parse through a million words. So B for the Scout, or for the Stoat.
And also the two weasels in the set were both previewed by Voxy, which for those in the know,
If you know, you
there's
know.
a great inside joke there. Yeah, so a lot of good decisions by Watsy for this one.
This one's a really interesting one. Builder's Talent. So actually another new mechanic here, not new, but returning mechanic, class enchantments. So Builder's Talent is a 2-mana class enchantment at Uncommon. It says when it enters, you make an 0/4 white wall creature token with Defender. And the way that classes work is they have 3 levels, so you can kind of level them up for a mana cost. So to get it to level 2, you pay a single white mana. And whenever one or more non-creature, non-land permanents you control enters, you put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. The third level up for 5 mana, 4 and a white. When this class becomes level 3, return target non-creature, non-land permanent from your graveyard to the battlefield.
Yeah, weird card.
It is. Not something you usually... There's no other card like it that exists in Magic, I believe. I mean, obviously there's cards with these words, but not this combination, really.
Because the most common non-creature, non-land that's going to be entering, I think, is going to be food.
There's also carrot cake.
Then,
That's kind of nice.
right. Well, I mean, the most frequent time you'll trigger level 2 is food, but then that makes it irrelevant for level 3 because none of the food goes to your graveyard, aside from carrot cake.
Right, so you're going to be activating level 3 when you've got like a Banishing Light in your graveyard, which doesn't happen often, but sometimes it gets milled, sometimes you discard it, sometimes they destroy it. So I would say mostly you're looking at this as like a build around for level 2 rather than level 3.
Yeah, but isn't it still like a build around, like, or not even build around, like a synergy? Because I don't think you want to go out of your way for this. Like a synergy, like D plus.
I'm a bit more optimistic on it. Like, consider your own deck. Like, your own Banishing Lights will trigger that. Or, sorry, I don't know if, of course, you're not considering your opponent's deck. But what I'm trying to get at is just think about the number of cards that aren't food that will trigger this as well. In your white deck, specifically. Like, your good removal spell.
Short sword?
Shorts, yeah, all the little equipment. I don't know. I think there's something to this. I don't think it's just a obviously not just like a put it in any kind of deck card, but an 0/4 that you can then like get even one counter somewhere else. That's not that bad.
For 3 mana though?
Yeah, no, like the 1 mana to level up. That's fairly small.
Okay, I'm sticking with my synergy D plus.
Okay,
that's where I'm going.
Yeah,
You can give it whatever you'd like. Alex.
okay. Oh, thank you so much. I just see the potential, I think, and I'm gonna give it the optimistic like synergy C plus.
Okay.
But I also want to note that I don't think it's gonna happen draft in, draft out. I think you have to be in a deck where you've got 4 or 5 things triggering this at least. Yeah, this is such an Ethan card. I agree with that. Next up, this one's just pretty good. Feather of Flight. 1 and a white for a aura that are uncommon. It's got Flash, enchant a creature. When it enters, you draw a card, and the enchanted creature gets +1/+0 and has flying.
Yeah, nice one. I found this one tricky to evaluate too.
Yeah, we've
Like
seen this.
whether you use it as a combat trick or as like a way to push damage, or if it's just both.
I think just like cantripping Valiant thing is pretty nice. And then give your thing flying. I think it's a clear shoe-in for red-white, but how happy are you within other decks, I think is the question.
Yeah, I guess it's a way to fly the thing that your birds have been growing on the ground finally goes up to the air as well.
Yeah, it also triggers it too. I think it's good. Like I like this card quite a bit.
Okay, you like it? Do you like it more than a C plus?
If it was just being put in red-white decks, yes. But I think generally it's a C. So just like maybe just a blanket C plus then.
Sure. That's what I wrote.
Yeah, cool. All right, this is interesting. Jolly Gerbils, good name. 1 and a white for a 2/3. It's a hamster citizen. And it says whenever you gift Sorry, whenever you give a gift, draw a card. So you actually have to say, yes, you are getting the gift thing, opponent. You're getting the fish. You're getting the card. But you get the card back.
I like cards like this existing because it gives
Mm-hmm.
you a way to draft a non like obvious deck.
Yeah.
Because if you get a couple of these, I think you can kind of build multicolor gift giving nonsense type of thing. Because it's not like gift giving is just gated to white. It's spread
Mm-hmm.
across all 5 colors. There's not a ton of cards in any single color that'll support this. So I think you will need to be in multiple colors if you're going to try and do this thing.
Yeah. And I think that's exactly how I'd frame it too. It's like a thing to do. Sometimes you might end up just like, oh wow, I do happen to have 4 gift cards, and it's a 2 mana 2/3. It's not the worst thing in the world. Sure, this will be one of my 2 drops. Totally fine.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So build around, right? Or at least synergy. I
Yeah.
should. Yeah.
Well, I think it could get a normal grade, but I think we'll give it the build around ceiling.
Yep.
Which would be like a B.
Yeah. I like that. I think even
Okay.
on the worst of the gifts, which is generally going to be making your opponent draw a card or letting them draw a card, you're going to get like you getting your card back plus the bonus of the gift means that you're just going to do it when you have the cards. Like I think this is a good enough payoff. Like you're going to say yes almost every time. I will give you that gift. Yeah. Build around B. All right. What's up next?
Mabel's Medal. 1 and a white for an instant. Target creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn. Up to 1 other target creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn.
Wow. Super efficient. Like you're getting +3/+3 across 2 creatures, and that means 2 Valiant triggers as well.
Really good with that offspring uncommon we saw
Yes.
that makes whenever mice get targeted, they get +1/+0 type of thing.
Man, White is scary. White has got a whole host of really good cards, and they all play really well together.
Yeah, if you can win 2 combats, like it's
Yeah,
a big blowout.
forget about Valiant. Just winning 2 combats is great. Is this a B- or a C+?
I think I'm gonna go C plus. We
Mhm.
saw I can't remember the name of it, but there was an AFR card that like tried to win 2 combats for 3 mana that really underperformed.
Yeah.
So I'll go C plus for this thing.
Okay. Yeah, I think being 2 mana is a pretty big deal, so I'll go B- on it.
Okay.
Parting Gust. This is white for an instant, and the gift is you gift a tapped fish, 1/1 fish token. Exile target non-token creature. If the gift wasn't promised, return that creature to the battlefield under its owner's control with a +1/+1 counter on it at the beginning of the next end step. So basically, this is a split card of blink your own thing, or you can blink your opponent's thing, and they come back with a counter, or exile a thing for good and they get a fish instead.
Yeah, not a very good card, and kind of a weird joke that one of the worst gift cards is in the color that has the payoff for gifting.
Yeah.
Is this thing remotely playable? Because my guess is that it's not.
I think it is. Yeah, I think that. So these kind of cards, we really don't like them, and I think people still kind of overrate them. The exile your thing, you get a 1/1 or 1/1 flyer. Tapped fish is probably one of the best things we've seen. Like as in for the player who's casting it, like that's a low impact thing, but still not good. Whenever you're giving them something, it's bad, like we've established. But I think the flexibility of this being a blink card as well, that you might just cast like save your creature for a removal spell, and then sometimes when they have a bomb that you're fine making that trade for, I think this pushes that into the playable range.
It's white.
That is true. I do agree with that. That is tough.
To leave up a protection spell?
No,
Like that's
you're right. You're right. Leaving up mana, like white mana, is not easy.
yeah, I'm gonna give this a D.
A D. Okay. Yeah, I wasn't gonna go much higher. The grade I had in my head was D plus. Just again into that playable range. But yeah, I could see. I could so totally see things falling a little bit more towards your end of things.
Okay.
Next up, we've got Repeal Calamity. This is 1 and a white for an instant. Destroy target creature with power or toughness 4 or greater.
So in most sets, this would be really good, repelling calamity.
Mhm.
But I still think this card's good. But there's a lot of small creatures in this set.
Yeah, worth noting though, a lot of them are gonna get pumped at some point.
Are they though? Like you're thinking, the obvious Valiant stuff where that stuff's growing all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But the frogs are pretty small, the lizards are pretty small, even the rats are pretty small. Like there's a lot of small woodland creatures in this
Oh, it's
set.
true. Yeah, no, I'm not super high on the card or anything. I'm just trying to point out that it's not just look at the number of things and that's how good it is, like the percentage wise. I'm just saying there's other situations. I'm skeptical about the card. I don't love it, even though it's a super efficient card.
Right. And even like some of the tricks that pump stuff give creatures indestructible. Like
Yeah,
two, at least two of them.
yeah. The thing is that when you do cast this and it gets a 4 power toughness creature and you trade way up on mana, it's going to be very, very good. But that's also balanced by the times where it's just sitting in your hand. And even if you do find a target at some point, it's been sitting in your hand for multiple turns in a lot of games. And that's really bad. Just having a card you can't cast. And I think people don't often weigh that heavily enough. So that balances out to be an okay card.
I was going to give this a C.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to give it to.
Okay.
Yeah, see if some people are saying C minus. I could see it kind of going that way, or C plus as well. But we'll stick right in the middle with C.
Sure.
Dewdrop Cure, very cute art. 2 and a white for sorcery. It's a gift card, and it's gift a card. So your opponent just draws a card. Return up to 2 target creatures with each with mana value 2 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. And if the gift was promised, you get 3 creatures back instead.
Yeah, so this is the first time we're seeing gift a card, but I think gift a card is actually the most common thing you can gift.
Yeah, by a little bit, I think so.
And my guess is that it's a commentary by Wizards on society that not enough people have thoughtful gifts and put time and effort into it, and there's too many gift cards going around the world these days. So
yeah,
I think there's something deeper there.
I believe that's where the design process started too, Mark. I think you're onto something. So yeah, just mechanically speaking here, the idea is like the mana that you're getting gifted for free will make up for the fact that you're giving your opponent a card as well. How often do you think that is actually going to be the case?
How often are you going to have 3 targets for this
Right.
thing? Like how often are you going to have 2 targets for this thing?
Not often. I don't think this card's very good.
No, I don't think this card's good either.
No. A lot of setup. The gift doesn't add too much. I could see it in like a white-black deck with like some self-mill, but even then I'd be kind of skeptical. Yeah, I'm going to give Dewdrop Cure a D.
Maybe. I wrote down D minus.
Yeah, I was going to say maybe even a D minus. Okay, I'll stick with the D because I think it probably has a place or two, but...
Okay.
Harvest Stride Host. This is 3 mana, 2 and a white for a 3/3 rabbit citizen. When Harvest Stride Host or another rabbit you control enters, target creature gets +1/+0 until end of turn. Then draw a card if this is the second time this ability is resolved this turn. Oh, nice.
Yeah, that is a spicy line of text to add on to this. This card's great.
Yeah, just this into any rabbit offspring card. The common rabbit offspring card we saw. Fantastic. The common hybrid green-white card. Obviously, that's another card that plays well with this. Yeah, card's really good.
Even if you never draw a card off this, I still think it's going to be good for you in most games.
Yes. No, I think so too. Yeah, Carrot Cake is another thing too, if you cast that a bit later. Yeah, I like Harvest Stride Host at a B.
Yep, I'm with you there.
Sounds good. And a card that plays very, very well with it, and is just a pretty good card. Hop to it. 3 mana, 2 and a white for a sorcery. You make 3 1/1 rabbit tokens.
Yeah, there are so many cards that want this.
Yes, so many cards. I think this is just a super premium card. And even if you're not doing rabbits, this card's just pretty good.
Yes, but there's a lot of payoffs for getting 3 things that are rabbits that are tokens. This is just like a B plus?
Yep, I was gonna say I'm ready to give this the B plus. Nice, this is what it takes. Yeah, synergy plus power. That's what we got here.
Yep.
Mouse Trapper up next. 2 and a white for a 3/2 flash mouse soldier. It's got a Valiant ability that says you tap target creature an opponent controls.
Yeah, tricky little creature.
I guess it has. Sorry, you go ahead. Yeah,
very, very low confidence on this.
I guess it has flash. The idea being like your opponent makes an attack, they They think, okay, they're not going to crack me back for too much damage. You flash this in. Maybe they have one blocker because they have attack with their other things because they think they're going to win the race, and then you tap down that one blocker. I think that's kind of the idea with the flash there.
Yeah, I mean, I'd prefer it to be literally any other ability.
Sure, yeah. Like lifeline, first strike. Maybe not vigilance,
But,
but
but I'm not sure if that makes this bad.
I think it's pretty solid. Yeah, one of the things when you've got a lot of valiant creatures is like in your deck is you're often going to have 2 or 3 things to choose from on the battlefield, and you have limited number of things that you can target that you can use to target them. So is this going to be the best thing to target on an average board in your average valiant deck? Could be.
I think so.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Tapping a creature is pretty good.
Yes, like I think this, especially at common and uncommon, this has been the best payoff so far.
You can also, it's not going to come up too often, but you can tap things down on your opponent's turn as well. There are some things that, obviously combat tricks, instant speed, but some abilities too.
Yeah, that becomes a little bit more awkward because you have to target this, right? So it's like pre-combat, you're pumping your creature, tapping an attacker, and then they know like how big your creature is before deciding what to attack with. This one, yeah, I have no idea what to grade this thing.
Yeah, it's tricky. I was just gonna give it a C plus, and that's kind of a seems pretty good, but not exactly sure how good kind of grade.
Okay, I'll give it a C. I'll go slightly lower.
Yeah,
because it's not very good stats, like 3, 2 for 3.
We've got another one of these overloaded on keywords uncommons here. Strike Force. Strike Force. I guess it's a pun on Strike Force. I guess that's what's happening here. 2 and a white for a 1/3 bird knight. It's got flying, double strike, and vigilance.
That is a hot set of abilities.
It is, yeah. So the game here is how can you increase it even by just 1 power? Because when you do that, it's great. When you don't do that, it's fine. It's still like playable.
Right, and vigil, like, oh, this card's so good.
It's very good, yeah.
Like, I think this is a B, but it's not hard for it to be better than that.
Yeah, so an equipment or a red-white deck, or unfortunately, it does have flying, so your flying counter matter cards aren't going to be able to target it, but that's okay. That's a small price to pay.
There's a lot of tricks in the set, and there's also like there's a green common 4-drop that pumps your creature for each creature you have.
I think you're also just going to kill them out of nowhere sometimes with this, right? Just like cast a pump spell, maybe have a sword. Yeah, no, this card's just really good. I would give Strike Force a B.
Okay.
Yeah, sounds good. What's up next?
Star Charter, 3 and a white for a 3/1 bat. It has flying, and at the beginning of your end step, if you gained or lost life this turn, look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature card with power 3 or less from among them and put them into your hand. The rest go on the bottom in a random order.
Yeah, this card's really good too. I thought this was an enter the battlefield effect when I first read it, and was like, okay, like, if you'd gain life this turn, do the thing. But this is every turn.
And it's not CMC 3 or less, it's power 3 or less.
Which is awesome.
Most of the bats, like even the 5-drop uncommon, is a 3-power bat.
Yeah, I think it's going to be rare that your white decks have 3 power creatures. Or, like, it's going to be rare that your white decks have non-hits for this, unless you're pairing with another color that has an exceptional number of high power creatures.
Yeah, you do need to be in the bat deck for this. So it is another case where, like, if you're the only bat drafter, you might see the 5th, 6th, 7th pick in some cases. Yeah,
and this is specifically you're doing the thing. So if you're doing the thing, I'd give Star Charter a B-, because, it's still just a 3/1, but card's good. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, I'm with you on B- ceiling there.
Driftgloom Coyote. Here's an example of its creature types don't matter because it's a pretty good card. 3 white for a 3/4. When it enters, exile target creature an opponent controls until Driftgloom Coyote leaves the battlefield. If that creature had 2 power or less, you put a +1/+1 counter on Driftgloom Coyote. Nice.
Well, nice. This is reminds me of something I said during our set review for March of the Machine, which is Alabaster Host Intercessor. You'd rather your Fiend Hunter be a small, cheap creature
Mm-hmm.
than a big body, because you don't really want to get these creatures into combat ever.
It's true. I kind
So
of
you're really counting on this brick walling your opponent, because if they ever like attack into it, you can't block.
Yeah, I'm more just imagining this like coming down and eating a token more often than not, I guess, is where my excitement comes from.
Okay, and then you've got, yeah, okay, a 4/5 that's eaten a rabbit or whatever, which is I guess what the art is telling us to do as well.
Yeah, and like sometimes you just have to nab that thing that they have and hope to, hope they don't have a removal spell, but that's not the worst thing. Take some time, take
Yeah,
some
I guess you
tempo.
can get an offspring
Yeah.
too. Yeah, okay, you kind of sold me on that a little bit.
Yeah, if this was in a set with fewer tokens, I would be lower on it. But I think just like nabbing a because when you had if you flashbacks to March in the Machine, the best thing you could do, or one of the best things with Alabaster Host Intercessor, was nab a incubator token. You really did feel good
Yeah,
when you got to do that.
yeah, that's fair.
Okay, so what do you want to give it? I wasn't gonna go crazy high. I was gonna give it a B minus, but
B minus? Yeah,
yeah,
I'm with you on B minus.
cool. Shore up. That brings us to the blue cards. Actually, before we talk about the blue cards, let's do a little bit of a white breakdown. My initial thoughts are white looks really good. Anything more complex than that from you?
Yeah, white. Not only does white look good, but all four of its color pairs look reasonably supported, right? Like we've
Yep.
seen bat payoffs and like bat rewards where you're going to get some of those cards late. Mice, rabbits are maybe more generically good. Like I think a lot of the good rabbit cards will go in other decks. So you might struggle to get rewarded for being in green white. And then birds is maybe a little bit on the fence, but still looks pretty decent to me.
Yeah. No, I agree that if there's one color combination in white that might underperform, blue white seems to be the one. But all the cards just look pretty good. There was very few cards we went through and we're just like, hey, yeah, it doesn't, too finicky or just not good enough. I think white's cards just look pretty good.
Yeah.
And that does bring us on to the blue card. So back to commons, back to the cheap stuff here. We got a reprint here in Shore Up. Single blue mana for an instant. Target creature you control gets +1/+1 and gains hexproof until on a turn. And you untap it.
Yeah, so we saw this in DMU where it was best friends with Tolarian Terror. Not quite as obvious of a target for it this time. So I do
Mm.
think it's going to be a little worse than it performed there.
Also, no Micromancer to go get for, drawing this for free. Yeah, I like pairing this card with flyers because generally your opponent has to reach out and cast a removal spell rather than just block them. So
Right.
that's something that's got a bit of a vote towards being good. But I agree, it's probably going to be slightly worse than it was in DMU.
Yeah, there's just not like a huge number of big creatures that you want to protect, I feel.
That said, we're kind of talking down a little bit. I still think it's pretty good. Like I would have given Shore Up like a C plus, I think, at the end of DMU, and I'd give Shore Up a C to start with.
Okay. I think I'll go C minus.
Okay.
I do think it's going to win more combats than it did in DMU because the creatures are more evenly
Mm-hmm.
sized. And I wouldn't be surprised if this has decent stats on 17 lands, but experienced players are not gonna, because the real thing is like you tap out, you attack them, and then they attack you back, and you're like, haha, I untap and hexproof and block and eat your thing. And I don't think you're gonna get good players with this as often as you'd like.
Right, exactly. Like if you are playing against a blue deck, this card is going to be or should be in the back of your head every time your opponent has any blue mana up. Not saying that they guaranteed to have it, but it's part of your range.
Yeah, yeah,
Did you want to give it a C minus then to
yeah.
go?
I said C minus.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. I'll stick with my C. We've got Bellowing Crier here up next. This is 1 in a blue for a 2/1 frog advisor. When it enters, draw a card, then discard a card.
Yeah, so I think that this card goes in most blue decks. Like you're not going to be excited to play it,
Mm-hmm.
but it helps you find your synergy cards. It does an ETB. Like we've seen the red version of this that rummages, which is strictly worse, and that card's sometimes playable. And I think being draw then discard makes this enough better that I'll probably play this in most of my blue decks.
Yeah, I think this is a good 2. Like, blue doesn't usually get that many good 2s, and I think this is a good one. So, I agree. C.
Yep, I'm with you.
Next up, we've got Dazzling Denial. This is 1 in a blue for an instant. Counter target spell unless its controller pays 2. If you control a bird, counter that spell unless its controller pays 4 instead.
Yeah, so this is excellent in birds. Is it still playable? Like, how many birds do you need to play this, I guess?
That's a good question. It's hard to say. My gut says somewhere in the range of like 4 or 5.
Okay, I think I'm probably on like 2 or 3.
2 or 3? Okay.
And another example of just like changelings make this a lot
Sure.
better.
Yeah.
Just to bring it back to that point I made earlier. But yeah, this is going to be excellent in blue white.
Yeah, I feel like this set review, more than most, is going to be one of the ones where, like, if you're just looking at the spreadsheet, might cause a bit of confusion early on, because this is another one that I think we're going to give just a blanket grade rather than a build around or a synergy grade or anything.
Yeah, and it's going to be higher than what the stats look like.
Right, exactly. I was going to give it a C+. Were you going to go any higher?
Yeah. No, I like that.
Cool. Runaway Together. Nice little reprint here. 1 in a blue instant. Choose 2 target creatures controlled by different players. Return those creatures to their owner's hands. And you have to choose one of your things. You can't just be like, I'll just bounce yours and none of mine.
Yeah. So I remember playing, I think this was in a set that I skipped, but it was also in original Ravnica. It was like Peel from Reality
Kill
or
from
something.
Reality.
It was
Yep.
pretty good there. This set, the fact that creatures are so cheap means I don't think you're going to get a huge amount of tempo for this. So I see this as a blue-green gold card.
Once again, I'm going to bring up the killing tokens thing, right? Just being able to kill a token, pick up a value thing.
All the tokens are tiny, though.
Sure, but you get to actually...
If you really want to spend a card on that?
I think you're going to, when your opponent... Like, I'm not saying you're just going to point and click this and do that, although you will sometimes. I'm saying when you have a really good target to pick up, even if it's just drawing a card, or when your opponent goes for a removal spell and you save your thing, bounce their token. Like, that's a relevant part of the equation for me.
Okay. I'm unconvinced. I think this card's very good in blue-green. Because not only is there a lot of cheap stuff that you want to rebuy, like there's more of that than in other decks, but there's also even triggers for when your creatures leave play sometimes. I don't see the vision for other blue pairs, but you could be right about that.
Yeah. No, I could be... I also could be wrong about that. Totally see it. I'm just... When I looked at this card going through the full set, I kind of thought, what makes this different than any other time we've seen it? And that was the thing. That tokens are a bit more prevalent. That's all.
Well, the thing that had going for it in Eldraine, was it, or whatever, was the adventure cards, right? You could bounce the Secret Keeper or whatever it's called and kind of go nuts with it.
Yeah.
So I see this as a blue-green C+.
And I was just going to give it a blanket C across the board. So I think we're probably in the same spot.
Okay.
Yeah.
That sounds similar.
Thought Shucker. 1 in a blue for a 1/3 Rat Rogue. Threshold, 1 in a blue. So it only has this ability when you have Threshold. 1 in a blue. Put a +1/+1 counter on Thought Shucker. Draw a card. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, when this was spoiled, people were poo-pooing it and dismissing it, and I was like, oh, I can see the vision for this,
Me
you know,
too.
once you get there, but then they had no support for Threshold.
Yeah, I think the 1/3 body is usually not great, although there is quite a few 1 toughness creatures in this set. So that is something I like about this card. Can trade with those, or at least hold back attacks. But you're totally right that you're just not going to consistently be able to do this even on turn, 4, 5, 6, I think. So it's going to be something that's not guaranteed by that time.
Yeah, like there's so little support for Threshold that I'm going to give this a D-.
Yep. I was going to give it a D, but yeah, I'm in the same camp here. Finch Formation up next. Again, like you mentioned at the top here, really, really good art. So much good art in the set. 2 in a blue for a 2/2 flyer. It's a bird scout. It says, when this creature enters, target creature you control gains flying until end of turn. but it also has Offspring for 3 mana.
That is a hefty offspring
Mm-hmm.
cost.
Mm-hmm.
So this is only going in birds, is my opinion. And even there, I think it's just fine. I'll give it like a C minus for blue white. Are
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
higher or lower on this?
No, I'm just trying to think about like how much damage you can potentially push in a blue white deck when you cast this on 6. Maybe that's just good enough. Like, I don't want to say like I don't want to judge the card too much based on what can you do with it when you have 6 mana. But I do imagine the 6 mana mode's pretty impactful. I'm not. No, I agree. I think C plus is where I'm going to land too. But I think this is one we could be wrong on.
Well, I went C minus. Are you going to C plus?
Sorry, I meant C minus. My bad. Yeah, C minus
Okay.
it is.
Okay.
All right, what do we have next?
Next is Night Whirl Hermit. 2 and a blue for a 1/4 Vigilance Rat. And as long as you have Threshold, it has +1/+0 and can't be blocked.
Ugh. So it's like that other card, Thought Chucker, we're like, oh, that's kind of nice. It's a good ability, but this ability is not even that good when you get there.
No, this one might just be an F.
I think this is a card template, a card design that they've been toying with, and it's still a bit underbaked. We've had a lot of these like 3 mana vigilant, kind of gets unblockable sometimes creatures, and they've not been good yet. So we'll see in a few sets when they tweak the knobs. But I'm gonna give Night Whirl Hermit a D minus.
I would have liked to see either both or at least one of these 2 blue commons also mill you for like even one.
Yeah, just a
So
little bit
that
of.
they play together in multiples and like you
Mm-hmm.
can help get there with a bunch of them. But yeah, there's
A little bit of grease on the wheels. Totally agree.
yeah.
Next up, we've got Pearl of Wisdom. This is a divination. It's a 3 mana draw 2, sorcery speed, but it costs 1 less if you control an otter.
Not very sold on this.
Yeah, we've been talking the last few set reviews. I feel like there's often been a card like this that you do a little bit of work or a little bit of something, get a 2 mana draw 2. And that's okay. And if it was always 2 mana draw 2, I think we'd be like, yeah, okay, pretty solid. But we're not over the moon about it. And the divination mode, I think, is not great.
Yeah, well, the thing that really like put this into focus to me was in LCI when Chart a Course was
Mm-hmm.
always on because you're always attacking, and it just like never mattered.
Yeah,
Like
we were
you
like,
never
okay.
cared.
Yeah, it wasn't like it was terrible, but it was just like there's probably 23 other better cards that you could put in your deck.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. It was like one of the last cuts you'd make
Yeah.
every time.
Yeah.
And
And
this thing actually being divination is like, no, I pass. Like
yeah,
it's not 2015 anymore.
and we were already kind of skeptical about blue red, which we may or may not be right about. I don't want to we have that way too much on our evaluation here, but it's not tempting me to play otters too much. So I'm gonna give Pearl of Wisdom a D.
A D. I'll go D
D
plus.
plus.
Yeah, there's like the uncommon that makes this is an otter and makes your spells cost 1 less. Like makes this
Sure.
cost 1.
Okay, that is cool. You know what? That is a good point. All right, I'll join you on the D plus. Not just because of that, but I do think there might be another spot or two that like makes this card look pretty good.
It would be nice if this was 1 less per otter.
Yeah, that would. Yeah, and I don't think that would make it too powerful. Totally.
No, I don't think so either. I think it'd be a really nice way to like juice up the blue red deck a little bit.
Yeah. No, totally agree. All right.
Wizards, if you're listening, I'm available for doing consulting
Yeah.
work on your next set.
Same here. Next up, we've got Water Spout Warden. This is 2 to blue for a 3/2 frog. When it attacks, if another creature entered the battlefield under your control this turn, it gets flying until end of turn.
So this reads interestingly like a blue white card to me.
Right. Yeah, because it can be flying or not.
Well, right, because you can trigger your non-flying things and buff it up, and then get your attack in.
Yeah, it's worded specifically, templated specifically, so it only gets flying during your combat. So when you cast a thing that says, put a counter on a non-flyer, you actually get a counter on a flyer.
Yeah, like the joke with frogs is that you're always going to have a creature come into play, so there'll always be
Mhm.
triggers for this. But I think the frog deck wants to block.
Yes, that's my read too. So this is not a. Even in the decks that like I could see it being pretty solid in, it's still not going to be great. Like I think I would just give it a C minus.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm with you on C minus.
sounds good. Dire Downdraft up next. Got a removal spell, 3 and a blue for an instant. It costs 1 less to cast if it targets a attacking or tapped creature. So they're really covering all the bases with all these cards. And the effect is target creature's owner puts it on the top or bottom of their library. And this is the kind of effect that every single set review I have to say, this is better than the average player thinks it is. I think a lot of people don't see this as like true removal. And sure, it doesn't get the creature gone for good, but it's trading a card for a card, and that's pretty good. There are notable exceptions where this card has not been good, but 80% plus times that this effect is in sets, it's a good effect.
Yeah, and as an instant that'll often cost 3 mana, that's where you want it to be.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like this is at least a C plus.
Yep. I was gonna give it a C plus. I could see this. I imagine you're not gonna take this highly. You're not gonna have to in the early days, but later on maybe as people kind of adjust. But I'll start C plus.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Cool.
I won't go any higher. I was thinking somewhere C plus to B minus, but I'll join you.
Yeah, it could be there. Here's an interesting one. Light Shell Duo. 3 and a blue for a 3/4. It's got prowess, and it says when Light Shell Duo enters the battlefield. When Light Shell Duo enters, you surveil 2, and it's a duo. It's a rat otter duo.
Okay, so I talked up the green scry stuff during LTR before being proven absolutely wrong because ring tempting was just way better than everything else.
Yep.
But I am ready to plant my flag again and say that this card is just good.
That's what I think too. And this is one of the duo cards I had in mind, and I was like, yeah, these are all just like pretty solid.
Yeah, I think this goes in any blue deck.
Yep, I do too. Which plays into. Thank you for proving me right, Mark. Good early picks. You're gonna take them early. It's an A minus, and yeah, I think this is like a C though, solid C.
Okay, I'll go up to C plus because it has 2 types.
Okay.
Like
yeah.
Sure.
Okay, cool. Mind Spiral up next. 4 and a blue for a sorcery. It's got gift, and the gift is a tapped fish. Target player draws 3 cards. If the gift was promised, tap target creature an opponent controls, put a stun counter on it. Super interesting.
Yeah, I feel like I talked up gifting a lot, and now I'm seeing more of the bad ones because I don't like the gift on this.
No, yeah.
Whatever tempo you're saving, like the idea is, okay, you're not going to die, so your drawing 3 can catch you up, but then you have to deal with even more of a problem the next turn because you've given them another creature. So I don't like this thing very much.
Yeah, I think my gut likes it a little bit more than you, but I'm also not loving it. Like the reason being is I think usually when we've seen like the common draw 3, that's sometimes been just like the base of a good blue control deck. And you don't have to do the thing. Like you could just cast this as your 5 mana draw 3.
Yes.
What's your grade on it? Because this might just be a situation where we're like kind of similar, but not like I was gonna give this a control deck C.
I wrote down C minus for myself. So
yeah.
Pretty close.
But I also think there's gonna be situations where you are happy with that exchange, right? Like they have a tall, not wide board, and you just tap in their one thing that gains you, I don't know, 5 life or something. It bridges that gap. Like
for 1 turn though, only like it's
right, but you've untapped with 3 more cards now. Like I think that little boost is what you're looking for. Like just that little thing to bridge the gap. I think you're giving up something on a future turn, but I think what you get on the turn you cast it is worth the exchange. Where some of the gift cards aren't generally going to be like that.
So you're taking like whatever you're tapping, if it's got 1 power, you're saving nothing, right? Because they can immediately attack with the fish.
You're just not doing that, of course.
So like for 2, then you're saving 1 damage, but then being presented with an extra 1 the turn after that. So it's still probably bad. Like you have to be tapping something pretty big, and at that point, if you have a huge creature you have to deal with, you've got bigger problems. Like I don't know.
Yeah.
I think we'll agree to be we're only one micrograde apart from each other,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm I've got my concerns
You're
about drawing three
dubious.
cards from blue deck. Yeah,
Totally. Yeah.
I'd
And
rather draw my cards through pawn profits. Let's put it that way.
true. Yeah. No, I feel you. And look, I'm not the biggest fan of 5-mana draw threes. Like, I'm not trying to be some big proponent of them. I'm just saying that I think when we've seen these at common, they've been something slightly better than we've expected. That's all.
Sure.
Sky Skipper Duo, another duo here. 5 mana, 4 and a blue for a 3/3 flyer. It's a bird frog. When it enters, you exile up to one other target creature you control. Return to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step.
Yeah, so there's a lot of ETBs with both birds and frogs.
Mm-hmm.
This it makes sense that that's the duo this is for. Still not like super exciting though.
No, but if you pair with your Elvish Visionary Frog, like just
Yeah,
tacking on draw a card.
for sure, for sure. There's
Yeah.
there's like that's one of the best ones at common though.
Also worth noting, because I'm sure somebody is thinking that or kind of has this at the back of their head. Offspring is on cast, so you can't like blink an Offspring card to get a new token.
Correct. Yes, that is definitely worth a mention.
Yeah,
So I
it's
mean, pawn
interesting.
profit is the dream, but
Mm-hmm.
more likely you're getting either like a life and a counter from your one drop frog we're gonna see, or you're getting maybe a surveil 2 from the 4-drop we just saw, or you could just be getting nothing, right?
Yeah,
Like
totally. Yeah, no, I'm not super high on it, but
C minus for this.
sorry, say again.
C minus.
Yeah, that's where I was gonna land too, because I am not a fan of even like 5-mana 4/4 flyer tends to underperform these days. So I'm not trying to talk it up too much. Just kind of interesting. I agree with C minus though.
Yeah, and C minus is just in the white and green decks, I think. Like I don't think you're
Yep,
gonna play this in the other blue deck.
totally agree. Okay,
Okay.
that's gonna bring us to uncommons. So Mark, want to kick us off with the first cheap back to 1 mana cards here for the uncommons?
Yeah, I will. We just had a comment in chat that came through right now about us not giving Ds. Like usually we'd give more Ds. I do think that they've done a good job with this set
Mm-hmm.
in making sure that the Ds are going to be the ones that don't fit your archetype.
Yes.
So like if you're in, blue green or whatever, the Ds for your deck are going to be the otter cards and the rat cards and the, whatever cards that are not supporting there. And I think a lot of the cards do go in a deck.
Right. That's one of the main things I noticed too, just going through the whole set. Like, it kind of feels like the whole set at common and uncommon is fairly flat in power level. There aren't very many really bad cards or really exceptional cards. So I think we are giving fewer Ds because that's just how it's gonna work out. So
Yeah, I looked through the entire file of commons and there was only like maybe 5 or less cards that I didn't really want to see make it into any of the shells of my main decks.
mm-hmm.
So very few.
Yeah, and the person who said that also says felt like the last card was a D level card, like the 5-mana 3/3 flyer with a little bit of upside. Totally agree that if you're viewing this just like on base averages across every single, monkeys throwing them in a deck, that is true. But we're giving the audience some credit here. Basically, we're saying, you're gonna know a little bit when to play this card and when not to. That's all. All right, Mark, uncommons. What's going on here?
Okay, we have our first blue uncommon, so single blue into the Flood Maw for an instant. You may gift a tapped fish. You can return a creature an opponent controls to its owner's hand. If you gifted them, you can instead return any non-land permanent an opponent controls to its owner's hand.
Yeah, so unsummon that can't bounce your own things is worse. Like,
Much worse.
you do feel that quite a bit. And
Yes.
that gift mode is just not going to come up all that often.
No.
Yeah, not huge on this one. This is pretty medium.
No, me neither. And again, the set's so cheap. Like if you were bouncing a 5-drop with no ETB,
Mhm.
you'd feel pretty good about that. But those don't really exist in this set. Like there's the red-green raccoon we saw at common, the hybrid thing, but there's very few of those types of cards in the set.
Yeah, better or worse than Runaway Together?
Worse.
Yeah, I think so too.
I just don't think there's like really a home for this.
We talked
Yeah,
we just talked about not giving a lot of Ds. I think this is going to be in the D range though.
Yeah, I was gonna give this a D plus.
Yeah, no, me too.
Okay.
Okay, cool. And there we go. Splash Portal up next. This is blue for a sorcery. Exile target creature you control, then return to the battlefield under its owner's control. So it's blink, sorcery speed blink. If that creature is a bird, frog, otter, or rat, so all the blue creatures, draw a card.
Yeah, easy to see where this goes, but keep in mind there's massive blowout potential for this.
Yeah, I am not a fan of just. Are you gonna let me do the thing? You got a removal spell? You got anything? You got a bounce spell? If not,
Right.
I guess I get a little bit of a bonus. Like, let's just take the we're using the 2 mana enter the battlefield, draw a card for a lot for comparisons. But I think it's a good baseline. You get to have a 1 mana draw 2. That is pretty good, but you're risking a lot when you're doing that.
And you can't you can never cantrip this on turn 1,
Right.
which is a big deal for a lot of these types of cards.
Yeah, if this was an instant, I'd be all over it. I think the card would be quite good.
Oh, it'd be amazing.
Yeah, sorcery is a lot worse. This might just be another D.
Yeah, I wrote this down as D plus as well. We're just appeasing our audience.
Yeah, exactly. What? We told you, Chad. We're giving up tons of T's. What are you talking about? Next up, we've got, this one's interesting. Gossip's Talent is a class enchantment. 1 and a blue. First level says, whenever a creature you control enters, you surveil 1. Second level, you'll level it up for 1 and a blue. Whenever you attack, target attacking creature with power 3 or less can't be blocked this turn. 4 mana, 3 and a blue. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you may exile it, then return to the battlefield under its owner's control. Finicky and weird, and touching on a lot of things that blue is doing. But is it good?
My answer is no.
Yeah, me too. So
I think this is an F.
I was trying not to give it like a super low grade off the bat when I first saw it, just like kind of visualizing what I might give it in this set review. And I was hoping you'd actually talk me up on it a little bit, but yeah, I think it's
sorry to disappoint you.
Yeah, man, Mark. What are you here for? I think this is an F2. Like, you just can't spend 2 mana for nothing. And then the second level also kind of isn't great. The fourth one, once you get that going, that's interesting, but that's just so much mana.
It's not even that good.
Yeah. You're not even guaranteed for the last ability to be great.
And you've spent 8 mana on it at this point.
I'm out. F?
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
F for Gossip's Talents.
There we go.
What do we have next?
Long River's Pull. Blue for an instant. You may gift a card. Counter target creature spell. If the gift was promised, instead counter target spell.
You never really want to do that. You never really want to say dismiss but for you.
Yeah.
So I see this as just like a fine card if you're heavy blue. Like Essence Scatter that is hard to cast. Sort of like Essence Capture, was it, from OTJ, the bonus sheet?
Yeah.
You had to be heavy blue to really feel comfortable with the card. And then once in a while, your opponent's going to cast like a sicko non-creature or a removal spell at just the right time when you're like, okay, you know what? It's worth giving them the card here. But the biggest hurdle to get through is that you're heavy blue. That's the main thing.
Yeah, I think they, like, for an uncommon, I think they could have costed this at 1 and a blue.
Yeah, I think so too. I don't think it makes it too, like, you know, maybe they've already power creep Essence Scatter with that one from Lord of the Rings. So yeah, so in a heavy blue deck, it's like a C. Because even in that heavy blue deck, you're still not going to cast it on turn 2 or have it available to cast on turn 2 every single time.
Yeah, I'm going to assume this is too hard to cast and give it a D+.
Okay, yeah. I could see that. I might even I might be high on with my C.
I'll write you down as a synergy C.
Yeah, appreciate that. Yeah, cover my butt. Otter Vol Antics is up next. Great art, great name. 1 and a blue for sorcery. You make a 1/1 otter token creature with prowess. If that card was cast, or if this spell was cast from anywhere other than your hand, put a +1/+1 counter on that creature. And how do you do that? Well, it's got flashback for 3 and a blue.
Yeah, so when I saw this, I was assuming I was going to mill it and then get like incidental value for casting it from the graveyard.
Me too.
Turns out that's not really happening, and so you get 2 understated creatures, basically.
Yeah, for 6 mana, all things being told.
It triggers your other prowess stuff, but at that point, you're just making them into like normal sized creatures. Like
Yeah,
you're not doing
exactly.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what we were kind of saying at the start of this review. The otters just seem so understated. I really want to like this card because it's cool. Just I don't like the numbers on it.
No, I don't like this either. It turns out we just needed to wait to get to the blue uncommons. All the G's were hiding here.
So if you are a dedicated blue-red deck, I still think it's like a D plus.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Unfortunate. Plume Creed Escort. This one's good. 1 and a blue for
Yeah.
a 2/1 flash flyer. It's a bird. When it enters the battlefield, target creature you control gains hexproof until end of turn. Whew. Wow.
There's actually, I think the whole rest of the blue uncommon file is a lot better. So I think you got to go up the mana curve to find the juice for blue.
Nice.
Because this card is great. Like this
Yeah.
is not a bird card. This is just a blue card.
It's just a card. Yeah. Good on turn 2. Good later. I'm like super punishing later. Your opponent goes for a removal spell. You get a 2/1 plus a protection spell. I think this card's phenomenal.
Like a B.
Yeah, like a B. Can you give Blue Creed
Yeah.
Escort a B? Nice.
Yep.
Okay, what's up next?
Shoreline Looter. 1 and a blue for a 1/1 rat rogue. It can't be blocked. And I'm gonna read this differently than what it's templated because the template's super confusing. When it deals combat damage to a player, draw a card, then discard a card. And if you have threshold, you just draw a card.
Looter Il Core that can block for the boomers out there and eventually draws cards. Would be great back in the day.
Kind of reminds me of the Suspicious Stowaway or whatever it's called,
Yeah. That's a good comparison.
where it just was a 1/1 that looted, but then later on, at some point in the game, it became just a draw engine, and it had to be killed. And this one fuels itself because you're looting, filling up your graveyard.
I hazard to say that this one is a good threshold card. Would you agree with me on that?
Yeah, but it's also just like you don't need to be playing Threshold. I think you'll play this in every blue deck.
Yeah, it's good because it's just good early and you don't need to be the deck. Yeah, I like it. Okay, what do we want to give this one? I think I'll give my grade first. I think I was just gonna give it a C plus, but what if you're gonna go a little bit higher?
I like it more than that. I was gonna give this a B. Like I think
Okay.
this is like this was extremely close to what was printed as a rare and a good rare like a year or two, I guess probably 2 years ago at this point. I think it's just good.
Okay. Yeah, I could see coming up on it. I'm gonna start with my C plus, but yeah, no, I like the text on the card. Yeah, and Chad's talking about the templating on this card, and you said, you read it a little bit differently. Feels like an instance of the designers being like, oh, we can template it to have less words, but it actually ends up being more confusing. Next up, we've got Long River Lurker. This is 2 and a blue for a 2/3 Frog Scout. It's got Ward 1, and it gives your other frogs Ward 1. And when it enters, target creature you control can't be blocked this turn. When that creature deals combat damage this turn, you can exile it, and if you do, return to the battlefield under its owner's control. Nice.
Yeah, so I mean, at worst, it gives something vigilance and unblockable, but at best, you're triggering your ETBs.
This card's sweet.
This card's very sweet.
Yeah.
I really also like just this. Like in game, like there's no restrictions on size for what it targets. This card is very powerful.
Yeah. And Ward 1 always a little more annoying than you might think. Just like from the opponent's side. Yeah, no, I think this card is really strong. Probably just fine in a non-frog deck too, but you do want to pair it with good enter the battlefield effects if you can. And obviously, giving all your frogs ward is nice.
Like a B minus?
Yeah, I like a solid B minus there.
You do need you need to have the setup where you have to have a creature already in play that hopefully has an ability, and if you just play this on turn 3 with the text might not even matter on the bottom.
Yeah, no, I like the card. Mind Whisker up next. This is 2 and a blue for a 3/2 Rat Wizard. At the beginning of your upkeep, you surveil 1, and the threshold ability is your opponent's creatures get -1, -0. That's just a static ability, which is good. It's a powerful type line or a
very good. Like I thought this was going to be like the payoff for blue black, but yeah, it's like we still haven't seen a single card in blue that mills, right? Like we're at the midpoint of the uncommons, none of the commons, barely any of the uncommons. Nothing gets 1 card in the graveyard, let alone 7.
This one does
So this does,
sort of,
yeah,
but
it
yeah,
does kind of fuel it, but then you need to be like not attacking or blocking with it
exactly.
for a
Yeah,
while, and I
yeah.
think this card is worse than it
That's
looks.
the exactly. I think so too. It's the really tough thing because you just think about how these play out, and like you just want to block with your early creatures in your
Yeah.
blue decks. So I like it. It's just I can't see it actually playing out that well.
No, I'm gonna give it like a C minus, and
Yeah,
even that might be too generous.
yeah, that's what I was thinking too.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. But yeah, we'll see how this plays out. It might just end up being a little bit better than we're expecting. And like I said at the beginning, I think it is going to be more of a all right on week 3. You know, this is totally underdrafted, but not looking great. Sugarcoat up next. 2 and a blue for an aura. It's got flash, and it says enchant creature or food. The enchanted permanent is basically a food token. Turns it into a food token. Loses all other card types and abilities. And by the way, it says enchant creature or food. So that when you enchant the creature, it doesn't fall off. Because if it didn't say or food, it would be a food and no longer a creature. And this thing couldn't, by the rules, it couldn't enchant it.
Yes. Yes. It took. I had to read this twice to understand why it said that. But
Yeah.
yes. This having flash makes it interesting because we've seen cards that turn stuff into like treasures before, and they've been pretty bad. But flash gives me some hope for this.
And turning into a food is way, way less punishing as the person casting it than turning into a treasure. Giving your opponent a free mana is not good.
Well, there's going to be some times where your opponent's immediately going to forage it
Yeah,
into
that's
something,
true.
and you're going to be like, "Oh my god, why did I do that?" But
Yeah, you can use this in combat too. Just your opponent goes for a combat trick or double block, like just like any other removal spell that functions the way you want it to.
yep,
Yeah, I think it's pretty solid.
yeah, I was going to give it like a C
Yep, I
plus.
like C for this. Sounds good.
Okay,
Spellgyre is up next. 2 blue for an instant. Counter target spell. Oh, sorry, choose one. Either counter target spell or surveil 2 and draw 2.
I kind of like this thing.
Yeah, me too. I do as well. And the draw mode is not overcosted. The counterspell mode is, but that's okay.
Right. There's also there's an uncommon coming up at the end of this file that plays really well with this thing.
Yep, I know the one you're thinking of.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do like this quite a bit. And as always, counterspells tend to be the cards that perform a little bit better in the hands of good players. So might be another card that's a little bit lower on 17 lands than its true, quote unquote, true power. But I think it's pretty good. I would give Spellgyre a C plus.
Yeah, I think I'm with you there.
Nice.
And I mean, all blue cards have higher top player stats
It's
typically.
true.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
All right, what is next?
Oof. Splash Lasher. 3 and a blue for a 3/3 frog wizard. It has offspring for 1 and a blue. And when this creature enters, tap up to 1 target creature and put a stun counter on it. Wow.
Wow. This is the quintessential, when I cast this, I'm not dying very often the turn I cast it. Or the turn after I cast it on 6, right? You're getting 2 bodies and tapping down 2 things. And the 3 mana mode's not super good, but you're going to cast it for 4 mana, I think, a lot of the time. Or sorry, the 4 mana mode, my bad.
Yeah, and you can also just stun something twice.
Oh, true. I didn't even consider that. Yeah, I just put the stun counters on one thing twice. Yeah. It's also one of the better board affecting Enter the Battlefield things we've seen for like frog payoffs or blinking things.
Yeah, this card, I love this
Love
card.
this card. Yeah, you want to give Splash Slasher a B?
Yeah, and it's again worth noting, not just a frog card, like just a blue card.
Yeah, love this card. So cool.
Yeah.
Night Fisher up next. 3 blue for a 4/5 flyer. It's a bird. And whenever you cast, or sorry, whenever another non-token bird enters under your control, you create a 1/1 blue fish token.
Another example of changelings.
Yeah, yeah, true. This is a nice
I
one.
think this is a bird card, but this is a nice size on this. This is huge.
Yeah, blocks very well. It doesn't have any protection abilities though, which makes me slightly skeptical. Like compare this to the Sphinx from OTJ, the ward 2 whenever you commit a crime you surveil 2. I think this card is worse than that card.
Well, sure. Sphinx was insane. OTJ was also a ridiculously powerful set.
Right.
Compare this. I think it's more fair to compare this to the Aeronaut Cavalry or whatever, the 3/4 that adds a counter to something, because this just comes with that counter like baked into it.
Well, yeah, but that's you get the value no matter what happens. Like, not this is still susceptible to just getting like having a big tempo swing in the wrong direction for you.
Yeah, yeah. If they just killed it, there's not a ton that cleanly answers this. Like it's 5 toughness
Mm-hmm.
is a lot. I think this card's. I would not play it outside of birds. Like I don't think it's
Right.
that
Okay.
level of good.
Right. Yeah.
But in birds, I think this is like a C plus. Like I don't
Okay.
think you're cutting.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with that. I think that's exactly what I would have landed to. I just wanted to, as I always do, temper some expectations because Big Flyer is no longer a great, just straight up generically great card in limited like it kind of used to be.
Yeah.
Calamitous Tide up next. This is 4 blue for a sorcery. Return up to 2 target creatures to their owner's hands. Draw 2 cards and discard a card. Interesting.
Hmm. So bounce 2 things in sets with tokens have often been quite strong, even as a sorcery. This is like a mix between Horses of Brunnen and Snow Day,
Mm-hmm.
almost.
Yep. Being a sorcery versus instant is for Snow Day, basically is the comparison. But bouncing is way better than tapping down.
Yeah, I think this card is good, but not amazing. Just because again, there's not like almost everything has either an ETB or costs 1 or 2 mana in this
Mm-hmm.
set.
Yeah, there are going to be some situations where you just don't really want to cast this on your opponent's creatures. They're not going to be a ton of situations where it's not going to be a castable card, but sometimes you're going to be like, ugh, this is a little bit awkward.
I think I'm gonna give it like a C.
Yep, I was going to give it a straight up C too. That's kind of a median C, where sometimes it's going to be mediocre, sometimes it's going to be quite good.
Yeah.
Okay, here's that uncommon you're talking about that's really good with the counterspell card. Daring Wave Rider. 4 blue for a 4/4 Otter Wizard. When it enters, you can cast the instant or sorcery with mana value 4 or less from your graveyard without paying its mana costs. And then you exile the spell if you cast it this way. Nice.
Yeah, card's just sweet. Like you want critical mass of targets for this.
Mm-hmm.
Just probably like 6,
6, 7, yeah.
7.
That's what I was going to say too.
Yeah, at a minimum. But those can even be like, as long as you're hitting almost anything with this, it's going to be good.
Yeah, totally agree with that. So I think as long as you've got that number, which I don't think is too difficult to have, like that's not some absurd number. I would give Daring Wave Rider like a B, probably just a B straight up, because like flashing back a removal spell is really good with this.
Yeah, you can also there's also ways to like you can run away together, bounce it.
Oh
You
yeah,
can flicker it with some of your frog
yeah,
cards. Yeah,
and
I like.
yeah, no, this is a good blink target too.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, yeah, want to give it a B too?
Yeah.
Sweet. And I believe we have our last blue card, Eddie Merc Crab. This is 5 blue for a elemental crab, so no relevant creature types, but it's a 5/5 flash creature that costs 1 less to cast for each instant and sorcery spell in your graveyard. It enters tapped if it's not your turn, and when it enters, you tap up to 2 target creatures.
This is powerful.
Yeah, wow.
And this is kind of the card that gives blue black and blue red maybe a little bit of hope.
This one and the last card, I think. I think, actually, we didn't really talk about it, but the Wave Rider is both a blue red and a blue black card, I would say.
Right, because
Yeah.
both of them want you to fill up your graveyard and then you reap the rewards.
Yeah, I think that's what we're kind of seeing from blue. The kind of as we're more clearly seeing the shape of how this archetype and these cards might come together is that, unsurprisingly, blue's expensive cards. I mean, maybe it's not necessarily always the case, but blue's expensive cards seems to be in this set like the reason you're drafting blue. These big blue spell payoffs.
Yeah, you only really need 2 spells in your graveyard for this to be like really good.
Yeah, if you compare it to like Hollow Marauder from OTJ, that's a pretty apt comparison.
Mm-hmm.
I like this card a lot. I think this is probably just going to be another B.
Yeah, I think I'm with you there.
You do have to consider the times too, where this is 2-3 mana sometimes. Like not often, but 4 mana is not crazy at all. Sweet. Okay. It's gonna bring us to the end of blue. What's your take on blue? I think I kind of talked some of it out just there, but what else?
Yeah, I think blue is the weakest color, but
Mhm.
not by a ton.
Me too.
And I am still optimistic about blue-green in particular. And if it's true that blue's the weakest color, and then you get like more open and past more of these, we've seen with the latter half of the uncommon file that there are rewards for being in the open lane.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really important thing where sometimes when a color is bad, it's just like there's just like really no reasons to draft this color. Like you're looking at rares, and if you don't have rares, why are you in this color? Not the case for blue. It just so happens that some of its cards aren't fantastic. More filler than maybe some of the other colors.